Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. First up at the top of the show, Twitter suspends popular YouTubers and commentators Brittany Vonti and Jeremy from The Quartering. Full disclosure, I'm a big fan of Jeremy The Quartering. I watch his videos almost every day, and they're a big inspiration to me. Not super familiar with Brittany Vonti, but I'm also somewhat familiar with the woman who is accusing them of exploiting her online. Her activist name is Eliza Blue. Not sure that's her full, real, and actual name, but she's a writer for The Blaze. She is what's known as, she calls herself a sex trafficking or human trafficking survivor, and she's been speaking out about that for quite some time. Apparently, she had teamed up with Elon Musk to bring down lots of the, well, I guess you're supposed to call it CP whenever you're broadcasting on social media. So to take a lot of that CP down from the platform. And now she's accusing Jeremy from The Quartering and Brittany Vonti for exploiting her for posting a photograph. We'll discuss all of those details here in just a few minutes. But after that, we'll have my buddy, State Representative Tony Lavasco will be joining us on the program this morning at 7:30 a.m. That's right, 7:30 this morning. Missouri State Rep Tony Lavasco will talk about why we should legalize shrooms. Here we are in Missouri. We just legalized marijuana, and this crazy hole is already stepping into legalized shrooms. And is he a Democrat? Is he a progressive, far-left, liberal activist? No, he's kind of like what you might call a liberty Republican or a conservative Republican. What conservatives might have used to be, right? They used to stand for more freedom, right? But now we have to call them liberty Republicans. Because you know how conservative Republicans tend to be. Ban this, ban that, don't do that, don't do this, don't say that. We'll talk to Tony Lavasco about why he's on a crusade to legalize magic mushrooms. Should be good. Lots of exciting updates for you today. At 8 a.m., we're going to speak to Judge Andrew Napolitano. And there's a couple of questions that I have for the judge. We're going to talk to him about the Biden document mess. But something that I've always been sort of turning over in my brain for a number of years. Remember, average minds discuss people, great minds discuss ideas. I want to talk to the judge on his thoughts about the concept of collateral damage in war. Now, this is a man, keep in mind, who's argued against war for decades, very anti-war. However, he does say there is such an idea as a just war. Well, what if there's a just war? If there's a just war, does that mean that collateral damage is acceptable, or is there never any allowable level of collateral damage? So I guess, are all bombs, should they be banned from war? It's a great question, and one that I want to discuss with him this morning at 8 o'clock. At 8:30 a.m. this morning, we're going to speak to Adam Riziri, who's going to join us. He's a marketing guy. I want to talk to him about the marketing of M&Ms. What an absolute disaster the whole marketing project that Mars has engaged in has exploded in their faces. Have you been seeing the fallout after M&M's decided that they were going to change the gender or make it all female M&M's? And then, remember when Tucker Carlson was talking about like the sexy M&M's? Well, they've decided to go ahead and just hire Maya Rudolph instead of making all of their M&Ms like the female Ghostbusters movie. Didn't last very long, and we're looking forward to talking to a marketing professional, Adam Riziri, at 8:30 a.m. Central this time. Buddy Mansour is messaging me saying, "Hey, AP, how about this storm?" Well, yeah, we got a little bit of a storm here in central Missouri. Lots of snow on the ground outside my house today, but how is it where you're at? Send me a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. If you want me to see your text, you can also send it as a super chat. That way it gets popped up to the top of my timeline. All right, so let's hit the news. All right, so Twitter bans and censorship. We thought it was over. Apparently it's not. For those of you who don't know who the lead characters in this one, I don't blame you, right? You don't get into the nitty-gritty of like online spats. However, I think this is a big story that affects everybody because, of course, we're talking about suppression of voices on social media platforms. And we all thought that when Elon Musk took over, that this was going to be happening a lot less. Maybe it is happening a lot less. We just don't notice it. But when it happens to somebody that we like or we follow, then we notice it, right? Well, Jeremy from The Quartering, his name is Jeremy Hambly. He's a YouTube commentator. He's really famous online. He's got a big following. He talks about politics, comics, video games, and the entertainment industry. And I would call Jeremy what you might say right of center, right? I wouldn't say, he's necessarily like us, a libertarian, or maybe you're not a libertarian if you're listening to, but like me, a libertarian. And Brittany Vonti is more of the woman who was suspended on Twitter is more of what you might call a right wing provocateur, right? I don't know that she considers herself a libertarian. I'm not really, I don't follow a lot every streamer online. I do happen to follow Jeremy from the Quartering just because I think he's got great takes and I think he's a good streamer. But I'll tell you this: the accusations that are being made against them, I think, are what are very interesting because the person who is accusing them of exploiting her by posting a photograph without her permission, which is a violation of the terms of service, is a woman by the name of Eliza Bleu, who came to my, and I say blue, but it's Bleu, like the French bleu, bleu, sacre bleu. She is an advocate and a trafficking survivor. You might have seen her online sometimes. She got very short, very light blue hair. And she has worked with Elon Musk to rid the platform of CP. That's what we call it. And CP is, is essentially what a word, a phrase that I cannot use. But I think you can guess what I'm talking about here when I say CP. Don't just do me a favor. Don't type it into the chat. Okay. Just DM each other with what we're talking about here. Um, Dances with Squirrels in the live stream says the Quartering is such a nice guy. He's careful. He got banned. Yeah. So why did they get suspended? Essentially, and this is what they're saying. This is their side of the story. Is that and from what I understand, there is a little bit more to it. As I was watching, Brittany Vonti sort of explained this. There is a little bit more to it than just this photograph. However, the posting of this photograph is supposedly from a music video that exists that Eliza Bleu is in. And Eliza Bleu is dancing in this music video. It's a publicly available music video, and she's dancing like girls dance on music videos these days, as you might say. So, as I understand, Brittany Vonti used that to sort of call into question Eliza Bleu's credentials as an advocate for people who are struggling with or who are currently enslaved in human trafficking, and to help people who are survivors of human trafficking. And Eliza Bleu has come out and publicly said that she's only going to say this once, but that she's essentially going to be involved in a lawsuit, not against Twitter because they took them down, but against the personalities who have posted this photograph online. She says, "I'm going to address this one time and one time only. A non-consensual photo of me was posted yesterday on Twitter. The photos have been removed. The source of the photo has also been contacted, and I'm prepared to escalate to the full intent of the law." Now, here's what Brittany Vonti, had tweeted. I think this is what got her in trouble. She says, "I saw this tweet right now, but I think it starts to blur the line about what is trafficking versus what is voluntary. I think it's fair to ask questions when things like this distract from the anti-trafficking messaging when it's not clarified." Okay, wow. Okay, so what are we saying here? So essentially, what we're talking about is that Brittany is calling into question the bona fides of Eliza Bleu by posting a photograph of Eliza Bleu dancing provocatively in a music video. Now, would I necessarily agree with Brittany Vonti about that? I don't think so. Does it call into question her bona fides? I don't think so. But that's Brittany's view, and I actually think it's a reasonable question to ask. However, it's aroused the ire of Eliza Bleu, and Eliza Bleu has access to Elon Musk. She has access to power. And, Elon Musk has, I wouldn't say necessarily been 100% consistent about the policies of how they would be enforced in Twitter in terms of suspensions. He decided not to bring back Alex Jones. And while, again, for those of you who know me, I'm not a conspiracy guy, and I'm not a big fan of Alex Jones, but I defended Alex Jones from being removed from social media platforms from the very beginning. And I think that he should be allowed on these social media platforms because I think more speech is a good thing. I think Donald Trump should be allowed on these social media platforms, and he has been restored to Twitter. And Donald Trump is attempting to try to be restored to Facebook. I think the answer to speech that you disagree with is speech that counteracts that point. Now, are these private companies? Yes, we're back to this point again. It's Twitter's a private company. It can do it at once, and it's even more private now than it was before Elon Musk took it over. It was a publicly traded company before Elon Musk took over. And now in this situation, I'm looking at myself and asking, is this a scenario where I think Elon Musk or his people are, might be have questionable motives here? Possibly, and possibly so. And Elon Musk, while I think he's a genius and I admire him, he's not what you might call he's not perfect. Right? He's not going to make perfect decisions. And I think thought what he's done with Twitter since he took over has been necessarily good changes? No. Do I think the new blue checkmark system where you can buy a blue checkmark is a good idea? No. Actually, I think that it's made Twitter worse. This is just my opinion. Call me an out of touch, arrogant elitist because I had a blue check before it was just something you can buy. But I actually think it makes the website much more confusing. And most people did too. When as soon as he took over and people could buy blue check marks, immediately people started impersonating, brands online, and it became a public relations nightmare for a lot of brands. Actually, there were companies that their stock value diminished. You may not care about that, but if you're invested in those companies, or say you're ready to retire and you're heavily invested in one of the company, you do care about that. Or if it takes food off the table of your family, it matters to you. My belief is that Elon Musk has taken on too many tasks. Do I love what he's done in releasing the Twitter documents and these Twitter dumps? Absolutely. He's shined a light on the arrogant elites of Silicon Valley. Absolutely. And people like the quartering. The thing is, people like Brittany Vonti and the quartering, they're also involved in that task. They're also involved in shining a light on the Silicon Valley elites. So this is kind of a situation where, in my opinion, more of the circular firing squad. Okay, if you missed my show yesterday, I was talking about the Leadership Institute's laws of the public policy process, and I think I'm going to hammer that all week. And I know I should be talking about people when I should not be talking about ideas because you're here to hear me talk about people, but I got to get the ideas in there. You need to go and download the laws of the public policy process from the Leadership Institute. It's a free PDF that's available online. It's like 50 laws with one sentence each. So it's not that much reading, guys. Just do me a favor. The Steven Crowder, Jeremy Boring Daily Wire mess, all of that Ben Shapiro related drama, everybody's breaking these terms, breaking the laws of the public policy process. I mean, if like what Steven Crowder said when he's talking about his contract on Timcast, or when he's talking about his contract, he goes, "It's about not talking about money. I'm talking about a movement." All right, well, if you guys are talking about a movement, if we're all a part of this same movement here, right? And I'm going to say Elon Musk is a part of this movement, then you all need to be studying the laws of the public policy process. We all need to be doing each other favors, and we all need to be helping each other out. And I agree that, with Twitter, hashtag free Brittany Vonti, that she needs to be released. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking a question like that. Right? Do I think that Eliza Blue is probably very sensitive about what she's done in the past and because she's been a victim? Absolutely. She absolutely has been a victim. Whether Brittany is calling that into question or not, that's her right to do so. And think about how many times in the last 10 years we've had to fight a question of false rape accusations, for example. But careful, false grape accusations, Austin. Be careful what you say here, Austin. I'm so used to being on conservative talk radio that, when I do social media stuff, I have to remember different standards. Right? You actually have a lot more free speech on conservative talk radio than you have on social media. But if Eliza Blue is to be believed, and I do believe her, then she's probably highly sensitive about those kinds of things. And so when somebody were to call her into question like that, I can imagine that she would become highly sensitive. Now, does that mean that Brittany Vonti could be right? I mean, she could be right. Brittany Vonti could be right, but there's only one way we're really going to find out, isn't there? And that's if she's allowed to have her voice as well on the platform, right? It's okay to question our leaders. It's okay to question people who have power. And Eliza Blue, whether you like it or not, she has power now. Was she a victim before? Yes. Is she a victim now? Well, in the past, right? At what point does someone lose their victimhood status and become a person who's in power? Right? This is kind of why the whole social justice victim Olympics thing is a really distorted system, and it distorts our view of people, and it's distorting our society because these people once they achieve victimhood status, then society gives them power, and then they can use that power to punish their enemies. So if the only crime that Brittany Vonti or Jeremy from the Quartering has done is to post a photograph from a publicly available music video, that may be a violation of the terms of service, but I don't think it should be. And I hope that Elon Musk revisits that. I'm going to take a commercial break. When we get back, I got to get ready for my next topic. And then Tony Lavasco, State Rep Tony Lavasco, is going to join me in studio this morning at 7:30 a.m. We're going to talk about legalizing shrooms. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Petersen stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Joining us now in studio, a little bit earlier than usual, is Tony Lavasco. Hey, Tony. All right, I'm doing okay. I should probably turn your microphone on. That'd be a good thing.
Good morning.
Nice to see you here, bud. Thanks so much for coming on the program today and coming in so early. You look a little tired, buddy.
That was a long line last night.
It was.
This morning.
Glad to have you here, Tony, even though it's snowing outside. But hopefully the roads weren't too bad here in Jefferson City, Missouri, and you were able to make it here safely. And all the other legislators, well, they can just stay home, and I'm okay with that. So, Tony, we just legalized marijuana here in the state of Missouri, and you crazy, wild-eyed Liberty Republican are already on legalizing shrooms. What the hell is wrong with you?
Well, to be clear, my bill is actually specifically a medical program designed specifically for patients that have severe PTSD, depression, suicidal tendencies, that sort of thing. It's a pretty narrow program. It doesn't go quite as far as I would like on the Liberty scale, but I think it's a great way to help some folks and really open the door to people getting the help that they need here in Missouri.
So obviously I'm a libertarian Republican like yourself, right? I believe in limited government, right? And so I believe that we need to end the war on drugs entirely. But here's my thing. I have never heard a story about somebody being addicted to or dying from or having psychotic breakdowns and turning into wild-eyed murderers because they were doing shrooms. Is there any evidence that magic mushrooms are like, a terrifying killer drug, anything like fentanyl or what have you?
Not at all. No, psilocybin has been studied extensively, and all the studies have shown that it is very safe.
Mhm.
The side effects, where there are some, are mild. There's nothing that is life-threatening or otherwise have any kind of permanent disability. The worst that we've seen is that people just, quite frankly, have a bad experience. It just doesn't work. But there's no indication of long-term dependence. There's no indication of even short-term health issues that we've seen beyond, like I said, some real basic effects. You can hurt yourself with Tylenol a lot more than this stuff.
Now we have a Republican supermajority in this state, so I imagine that your bill ought to just breeze through committees and make it to the floor with no problem, right?
It'll be a little bit of a challenge. There are some folks that are not familiar with psilocybin and what it can do.
Mhm.
A lot of the studies are earlier on than some people are comfortable with, and so we're going to have to make them feel that this is something that they can do, and it's not taking a big risk for them politically. But I'm convinced that we can make that
I
do.
mean, the challenge is that sometimes it's just like convincing our parents or convincing parents in general, right? Because they worry about their kids, right? And when a kid comes up to them and says something like, "Hey, we need to legalize recreational cocaine," "Mom, it's time to legalize magic mushrooms," they always assume the worst. But I mean, how do we sort of have these conversations, Tony, with people? I mean, other than we can't approach them with a bodily autonomy view because they don't believe in that, right? So, I mean, what are some of the best methods that you've been able to use to be able to convince people that it's a good idea for us to do something as wild as legalizing mushrooms in a conservative state like Missouri?
I think you start by not referring to them as magic mushrooms.
Oh, they're regular mushrooms, okay? They don't have any magical properties.
So people hear that and they have this idea that your doctor's gonna go out in the front yard and he's gonna just grab a shroom off the lawn and you're just gonna like just pop in your mouth with some pizza, right? That's not how it works. This is a pill. Psilocybin is the component that is found naturally occurring in mushrooms.
Mhm.
But this is a medical treatment just like anything else. People you start getting into that terminology, it's easy to scare them. Remember that aspirin is derived from tree bark. This
Really?
isn't actually scary concepts.
Oh, I didn't know that actually. Aspirin is dried from tree bark. We learned something new today. Yeah, let's give Tony a round of applause for the knowledge. Yes, if you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson, and you're listening to State Representative Tony Lavasco from the state of Missouri, who's joining us in studio now. We're talking about his bill to legalize mushrooms. What else have you got on the docket? Any other kind of weird or wild or wacky legislation you're proposing this year?
Well, I wouldn't call it weird or wacky, but we do have a hearing hopefully coming up next week regarding a bill that I refer to as the Building Permit Reform Act. It is designed to allow homeowners to have more flexibility for doing their own work on their own home.
Mm.
The idea is that your local municipality shouldn't make you take some complicated test or get a special license or do other things of that nature just to pull a permit and kind of do your work above board, as they say. A lot of localities really go out of their way to discourage people from doing their own work on their own home. I don't know if that's a thing with contractors, if it's trying to drum up more business for them or what, but the evidence just really isn't there that it makes anybody's homes more safe. Inspections and whatnot are still occurring. So we want to make things as streamlined as possible, as little paperwork as possible, and as inexpensive as possible.
Well, that's good to hear, Tony. We appreciate that very much. What do you think about that? I think yeah, okay. The audience likes it. We're glad to see. If you have a question for Tony, send us a text at 573-319-1586. We'd love to take your texts. Alternatively, you can support the show and ask a question as well by sending us a super chat over on YouTube at youtube.com/AP4Liberty. If you're watching us over on any of our other platforms like Rumble or Twitter or others, we always ask people to join us over on YouTube just because that's where most of the Cantina crew hangs out, all of our friends. However, we're more than happy to have you hanging out on Twitch or on Twitter or on any of those other platforms if you're just not a big fan of YouTube. But it's a lot more fun over there, and we'd love to have you. Tony, big budget surplus here in the state of Missouri this year. You guys have got tons of cash. And I mean, I see people like Bill Eigel who are already out there like, let's spend it on this, let's spend it on that, right? Let's widen I-71 in Kansas City, I think the governor of Missouri is saying. What do you think ought to be done with it?
I think ideally we give it back to the people. Of course, we tried doing a little bit of that during special session last year. I say a little bit of that because despite being the largest tax cut in Missouri history, I think most people really aren't going to feel a massive change in their bottom line. I think it was relatively small compared to what we could have done. Being said, I am open to the idea of widening 70. I think, generally speaking, one of the few actual purposes of government is to maintain the roads, and 70 could use some work. I don't think we need to be going all extravagant. I don't want to see any bike paths or any of that nonsense, added to that. But if we kept it specifically narrow to the idea of adding a lane, I'd be open to that discussion. I'd have to see the specifics, but I think the idea is worth some merit.
Okay, so they won't be giving us our money back, which is a damn shame, but at least we can do something that won't be a complete waste of taxpayer funds. For a while here, Tony, we were in Missouri, we were talking about building a Hyperloop. And I know that sounds like, more government boondoggle stuff. But here's my thing. In Japan, Steffi and I are looking at our trip, right? We're going here in a couple of months, and we're looking at taking the Shinkansen, which is their bullet train line. They built this giant magnetic levitating train network where you can go from Tokyo to Kyoto, which is a really long distance away in like 2.5 hours. It's this unbelievably fast train. Why is it that other countries can get public infrastructure or can get infrastructure like that right, but the United States just can't seem to build, any decent public infrastructure? The best we can do is roads, and the roads aren't even that great, Tony.
Well, I'd argue it's because we have robust property rights for the most part. Now, granted, that's eroding and has gone downhill quite a bit over the years. But the reality is creating something like a bullet train without massive use of eminent domain is basically impossible, right? Getting that many people over that large of an area to agree to voluntarily sell their property to government is very, very difficult. Obviously there is uses for eminent domain that you could argue. I am not a fan, as you know. That said, just the logistics of it are very difficult. And, the reality is picking a route that is going to actually be useful and please everyone is also very difficult. We saw an exploratory concept that sought to kind of get Missouri in the running for it was kind of a competition to see, who could start the Hyperloop idea in the country a few years back that we voted on. And I think it was a small subsidy to do that. I was not in favor. We didn't come to fruition. Not surprisingly, Missouri just didn't quite make sense for that. I think the technology is fantastic. I think we're going to see that eventually coming up, but I don't think it's something that's going to replace the interstate highway system or anything like that.
Tony, drag queens and transgender people are on the agenda this year. It's going to be a big question in the state of Missouri of whether or not there will be restrictions that will be placed by the legislature and signed into law by the governor that will prevent young people from being allowed to be admitted to things like drag shows. So just the concept of someone who's under the age of 18 going to a drag show at all doesn't strike me as a good idea. Is it the kind of thing though that there needs to be a statewide law for?
Yeah, I think that's the question. We had a very robust 9-hour hearing yesterday in the General Laws Committee, considering various legislation surrounding these topics, and that was one of the things that was discussed: is what kinds of productions are appropriate for children, what are not, and more specifically, what's the role in government in actually regulating that. I think it's difficult. Some of the bills that we presented, I think, had some good intentions. I think that they perhaps could be made to be workable with some revisions. That said, we've got a First Amendment, we've got the right to free speech and expression, and we've got to be mindful of that. And if there's not an explicit sexual material or something similar that would otherwise be regulated in law, I think you'd be real careful about
How do
putting
we
our judgment.
determine that, right?
I
It's kind
know.
of like it's back to that old Clarence Thomas debate, or what was it like? In terms of pornography or smut, with like Larry Flint and Hustler. It's like, how do you know when something is like pornography or whatever? And he said, and like, was it Clarence Thomas or somebody said, I know it when I see it, or something like that. And it's kind of, that's going to be the subjective determination of how we're going to say whether or not, how many adult toys do you have in this performance? Okay, well, that's one too many adult toys, so you got to have an 18 and an 8, but you can have one adult toy, but if three adult toys is just too many for the kids.
Well, and the discussion that came up as well. I mean, there's a lot of PG and PG-13 rated movies that will have very adult humor that's built in that kind of goes over kids' heads and it's aimed for the
Yeah,
adults in the room.
yeah.
Where is that line? I don't know where that line is, but that was an interesting discussion.
Well, that is an interesting discussion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. Alternatively, if you'd like to support the show, you can send us a super chat over on YouTube to help us grow at youtube.com/AP for Liberty. Now, in terms of the drag queens, story hours, that's one thing. But the question of whether or not biological males should play females in sports, it seems to me to be a ridiculous concept, Tony. It doesn't seem to me that there will be any kind of actual competition if you're a biological male and you compete in female sports. However, what I'm seeing now, and this is guidance from the Department of Education. This is just yesterday. I was reading this, and you might not have had time to see this. A paper that was submitted through the Department of Education, excuse me, comments submitted to the U.S. Department of Education in response to its proposed Title IX rulemaking. Now, in this piece, these professors, or civil rights activists and professors, are writing about the U.S. Department of Education's proposal for a rule that would require federally funded schools to assign transgender students to the bathrooms, locker rooms, and showers set aside for the sex that match their anatomy and chromosomes. Now, these people are arguing that the proposed rule is inconsistent with Title IX. According to these commissioners, the statute unambiguously gives schools discretion on this issue. Such discretion allows schools to act in the way they believe would be in the student's best interest. Now, Tony, I mean, I didn't like the idea of taking showers in front of other dudes. Now I gotta, as a kid, you're a high schooler, you got to deal with the pressure of having to share a locker room with somebody who doesn't know if they're a dude or if they were a girl and all that kind of stuff. I feel bad for these kids, Tony. What should we do?
Yeah, I agree. I go back to the concept that I think we talked about last time on the show, which is why can't we really be promoting privacy for everybody, regardless of the circumstance? Why,
Yeah.
why are high school kids having commingled showers at all? Is it really that hard to build a stall? All of these issues seem like they are controversies that come up as a result of just kind of our general laziness as a society to kind of treat each other well. And I think that that is true whether you're talking about transgender folks or people that might be more typical. The idea that we want to kind of force people together in ways that make them uncomfortable for whatever reason, and then create a bunch of hubbub about it. I think is unfortunate.
I agree with you in principle, Tony, but unfortunately, very few other people do. And you're going to be involved in debates for that will be, legislative rulemaking in regards to how schools in Missouri will treat this issue. I mean, how do you expect your fellow lawmakers are going to treat this?
Well, I think generally speaking, we still have a Republican supermajority. I think they'll act as you might expect.
Mhm.
These are nuanced issues. I would be considerably more open to the idea of some statewide regulations when it comes to things like showering or other more intimate acts that would be very uncomfortable for a lot of folks than I would with deciding who plays soccer. That's not really something that interests me all that much. I know a lot of people feel very strongly about that. But there are some things that it makes sense to have a statewide standard, and other things that maybe your local school board should figure out.
But now on the most difficult question and the most piercing question is the question of whether or not minors will be allowed to undergo surgery and to receive life-changing, life-altering hormones and drugs from doctors. How do we sort of square a circle with ending the war on drugs, right? And then, bodily autonomy with telling a young person, well, you might be confused, you might want this surgery, but we think it's in our best interest to have the government ban it. I imagine you probably don't think that the government should be. I imagine that you think that the government should prevent young people from undergoing those kinds of procedures or surgeries, Tony.
Yeah, honestly, of all the various issues, I think that's actually the easiest one for me. We can debate whether or not 18 is a proper age to consider someone an adult, and I would argue maybe is a little bit too high, but that's the age that we've decided on, at least for the moment. I think we ought to standardize that on that, and if the law says that you're an adult, then I think the government should stay out of it. And if the law says you're not, then at that point there is a certain role to make sure that parents aren't making choices that are irreversible in a lot of cases for their children who are not necessarily able to make those decisions themselves.
Liberty people like ourselves, Tony, are in such a difficult position with this because the debate is so polarized, and the demand is on both sides of the debate that you conform to one or the other side and their entirety, either the utter depths of depravity that are being advanced by the left, or the entirely puritanical and completely nonsensical views that come out of frequently the radical right. And so with people like ourselves, where there isn't a bigoted bone in our body. Having known you for a while, right? Like, the N word doesn't fly out of your mouth whenever you get off of the camera.
Thank you
Right?
for establishing that. I'm sure people were concerned
Yes, no, but I
when you
mean,
brought it up.
but I mean, you know how some people are, right? You get off the
Sure.
camera and then all of a sudden, expletives fly, and it's kind of like, well, this is what you get for hanging out with these kind of people. But the point is that and so not having a bigoted bone in your body, right? You don't probably find any inherent disgust. You don't find yourself probably disgusted by drag queen or disgusted by the personal behavior of consenting adults who engage in a little bit of cross dressing or right who find themselves confused by their gender. You're not sitting awake, lying awake at night saying this is the end of the world and the end of civilization as we know it, right? You're not. So then, what do when you're faced with a situation where you're stuck in the middle between these two, rampant sort of radical ideologies where you say, on one hand, well, the progressives say you're a bigot if you don't let the kids be cut or drugged or hormoned. And the right says, well, you're a libertine, whatever, degenerate. If you don't ban all drag queens or ban transgender kids from being able to compete in the opposite of sports, how do we find some kind of a reasonable middle without, I guess, destroying our political careers and our futures because we didn't conform to one side or another?
I think you just return to first principles. Individual liberty is the bedrock of why government exists. It's why I ran for office. And you have to kind of apply every single take and every single decision that you're going to make to that concept. Is this furthering or enhancing individual liberty, and whose interests are in part? I don't particularly care what either side thinks of me. I'm going to be voting how I feel, and I think you'll see that I'm going to be voting with one side sometimes and another in this topic
It's a
because
tough
it's
position to be.
nuanced. It's
I know,
not,
but
it's not the kind of thing that you can just apply a litmus test to
it's not. It's a
politically.
tough
You
position to
have to
be
use
in.
reason.
Yeah, you do have to use reason, but we are reasonable people in an unreasonable world, Tony, and we are outnumbered, right? So I mean, we've got to apply some Sun Tzu. We've got to apply some art of war here. How do we, with a much smaller force, defeat a much larger force? I mean, we got to, who do you draw on for inspiration?
Oh, I look at philosophers. I look at politicians that came
Of
before
course you
me. The
do.
great Ron Paul, of course, always comes
Of
up.
course you
Uh,
do.
you know, I, I think the tough part is you have to craft a message that's consistent. And a lot of people are not used to that in politics. It's something that I've always tried to do. I've always prided myself on is being consistent. And I found that if you are true to yourself and you don't go out of your way to be hypocritical just when it's easy or when it's going to score you a few political points, people, believe it or not, actually do understand when you're not with them on everything.
Mm.
What people don't understand is when they think that you really in your heart believe something, but you're saying something else because that's what's expected. Nobody appreciates that on either side of the aisle. and you don't get too far when you do that. And yet,
Oh man, I think
basically, that was
I
the status quo.
I
Everyone
think I
thinks that
disagree. I think I disagree with you to some extent there because I actually think people really do want to be told what they want to hear. That most of the time, people really just want to hear their own opinions repeated back to them. My understanding is that the most successful politicians are the ones who tell one group of people one thing and then tell another group of people another thing out of the side of their mouths. And only people like you and I and some of our followers, the 34 people watching over on YouTube and however many on other networks, like a very small minority of us really want to be told the truth even when we don't like it, right? That most people just and here's the thing, and only those amount of people are going to go watch the YouTube video of you saying one thing to one group and one thing to another group and actually care. Because most people, they don't care as long as they heard what they wanted to hear in the moment that they wanted to hear it.
I think that's fair, but I think you missed my point. I didn't say that you're going to be incredibly successful with that strategy.
Oh, right.
This is not the blueprint to massive political success.
Okay.
It's the blueprint to respect.
I
And
know.
that's how you start and nature or nurture a liberty movement and a culture within both parties of respecting individual liberty. Yeah, I doubt I'm ever going to be president, but that's not the point. The point is,
too.
you do what you got to do and you move forward.
Yeah, I know I'm not going to be president. We've already been through that rigmarole. Tony Lovasco, state representative from the state of Missouri. Thanks for getting up so early and joining us. Appreciate what you do here for us and appreciate what you do for the cause. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks, Austin.
Yeah, we'll see you a little bit. What do you think of that? All right, I'm going to give you my view on this whole transgender thing. I saw a man got a sponsorship for tampons. I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm explaining to you my whole philosophy on this situation. It will make me no friends, and I will never become president or be successful. Or at least maybe I'll have your respect on the Wake Up America Show at thewakeupamericashow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus...
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Totally didn't mean to hit the transition back away from the commercial button, but since I did, guess what? I'm here and I'm going to talk to you now. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's nice to see so many people over on YouTube today, as well as on Twitter. If you're just joining us for the very first time today, make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification icon so that you can get notifications whenever we go live. And very briefly, the Wake Up America show is every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central. And for those of you who are on the go and don't have time to watch the show but would like to listen in, there is a live audio stream. If you want to listen to the show but not have to worry about the video, on the website, wakeupAmericaShow.com, you can catch the live audio feed of the show by just heading to the website, wakeupAmericaShow.com. You got to scroll down and it says live audio feed. You can just click it and then you can just tune into that audio. But if you want to just listen to the audio at your leisure any other time, of course, we do upload it as a podcast on Podbean, but it's on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and all that kind of stuff. Pretty much all of your favorite podcast networks. Just type in the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, and you should be able to find it. If you have any problems, let us know. Very brief update before I get back to the news. Very exciting news. Big update. So guess what? We've got our first employee. Cool, huh? Unfortunately, I won't be able to have them working on the Wake Up America show itself right away, although that's the idea, is to start transitioning them into a more content creator role. But this person is a digital marketing major at Lynn Tech, and I reached out to them at the end of last year, and I've just been kind of having conversations with him and sort of, been kind of like judging the cash flow. Boy, I tell you, if you never hired an employee, it is tough to get all that stuff figured out and then deal with the taxes and all the other questions that the feds ask you whenever you dare to give someone a couple biweekly paycheck. But this person will be joining me for part-time to start, and hopefully the goal is that if things go well this summer, I can transition them into a more full-time role and have them more involved in the content creation process. But this person is going to be tasked with helping us to run the AP for Liberty shop, which, if you've never checked it out before, somebody sent me a compliment this morning. They said they love the shop. They think it's off the chain. They really love the products over there. Lots of libertarian and liberty-loving merchandise, Founding Father style stuff, as well as Wake Up America show products. I don't have a whole lot of time to run the shop just because I'm full-time content creation right now for people like you, so that you can get awesome videos every day and a great show. But we're going to have my new part-timer start running the shop to help give you guys more awesome gear and good stuff like that. Good morning, Paul Marone. Good morning, Mary Kramer. Quest Fanning, Tolly Owens. Nice to see you, Andy Opperman. Yeah, I don't want to say that person's name just yet, just because I don't know exactly if they want that. Maybe up to them. I'll ask them first. But good morning, Texas 556. Nice to see you. It says downloaded and followed. Great show. Glad that you enjoy it. We're happy to have you here. I try and bring you the best liberty-loving content 5 days a week, as well as awesome shorts. If you haven't seen my Guns of the President videos, which I imagine a lot of the new people who are coming into the program, that's where you're coming from, because I've added like 2,000 subscribers in the last week. Because of that video. My Franklin Delano Roosevelt video went viral. It's got like 300,000 views. My George Washington video's got over 100,000 views. It's just huge, huge. Corey Kleiber, nice to see you. I'm glad you love the show. But if you're new, just so you know, we do go 5 days a week. And if you haven't seen my Guns of the President videos, check that out. Yesterday I did, was it Grover Cleveland? Yes. No, yesterday was George H.W. Bush. The day before that was Grover Cleveland. I've done Lyndon Johnson. I've done Ronald Reagan. I've done George Washington. And can you guess which president I'm going to do today? That'd be a fun little guess. I'll tell you what, the person to guess it down there in the stream, who sends it in and and does the right guess and guesses in the next 5 minutes, is going to get a $5 gift certificate to the AP for Liberty shop. How about that? Whoa, Austin, you're so generous. $5 whole. Yeah. Well, you can get free keychain for that. AK-47 keychain. It's kind of cool, right? Prefer fortnightly for every week, but people look at me like I'm insane. What is fortnightly? God, I forget what Fortnite means. It's a video game, right? 4 scores and 4 nights ago. Steffi says Bill Clinton. No, Stephanie, and you're ineligible to win anyway. You know that you can get whatever you want from the shop for free, my baby, because I'm a sugar daddy. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. Yeah, for those of you who are tuning in this morning to talk about the topic du jour, which is the one that's advertised for the show, the Brittany Vonti, Jeremy from the Quartering ban, I guess suspension from Twitter or ban from Twitter until they pull down their tweet. The latest news is the gossip, which is trending on Twitter, is that Jeremy from the Quartering, who I'm a big fan of, Brittany Vonti, don't really know her as much, and Eliza Blue is involved in this drama. Eliza Blue is a human trafficking survivor who's now an advocate, who apparently demanded that they be taken down because of a photograph that was posted of Eliza Blue that is, from a publicly available YouTube video. Now, the reason why the sort of the drama escalated in this situation is because apparently Brittany Vonti used that photograph to sort of call Eliza's credentials into question. Now, whether or not Eliza's credentials should be questioned over something like that, I'll leave that up to you to debate. But in my view, Brittany and the Quartering should be restored to Twitter. And I think that it shows a bit of a problem with, I won't say this is corruption necessarily, but with, I guess, what you might say cronyism, in that Eliza Blue is close to Elon Musk and was involved in the early days of the transfer from Twitter from the Silicon Valley elites before to Silicon Valley elite Elon Musk. In that, my guess is that having that kind of power and access, that she demanded that they be suspended over that photograph that was published of her, which is of a publicly available YouTube video. Which if she was in that video with her consent, I guess is really the question, which we really need to determine. And I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe if you know the answer and you've got some more information on that other than what's publicly available, at least to me, as of the time of this broadcast, I'd love to hear more about that so I can make that determination. But as far as I understand, Eliza Blue is a dedicated and committed activist. The problem, of course, is that once someone gains the kind of power that Eliza has, and she has power now, people tend to misuse power. It's that old Lord Acton quote: "Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." People's good intentions isn't going to save them from the laws of physics. And the reality is the more power that someone accrues, the more they're tempted to abuse it. And there really are just very few people in this world. George Washington is one, maybe Ron Paul would have been another, right, who would walk away from power, or who, when they have the ability to abuse power, don't abuse power. Does this apply to Steven Crowder and Jeremy Boring in the Daily Wire? Probably. You know what? You know who else I would trust with power if they had it to not abuse it? Judge Andrew Napolitano. Why don't we go get the judge? He's waiting for us over in the wings. I'm gonna pull the curtain, play some funny commercials that I produced just for you. I'm gonna go get Judge Napolitano. We're gonna talk about the Joe Biden document mess. And then I'm gonna talk to him about philosophical ideas, because one of the quotes that I actually like from the Roosevelts, average minds talk about people, great minds talk about ideas. Ideas. I know. And you lose followers and you lose subscribers when you talk about ideas versus when you talk about people. But we've talked about Brittany Vonti and Eliza Blue and Jeremy the Quartering and stuff like that. I want to talk about ideas with Judge Knapp. It's big brain time when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America Show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? You can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
It's me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist. Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupamericashow.com. All right, well, it's big brain time. You know, average minds discuss people, great minds discuss ideas. And with Judge Napolitano, we can discuss both. He's joining us now on the line. He's the host of Judging Freedom, the Judging Freedom podcast. You can download on any of your mobile devices, and his weekly column at judgenap.com. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning, Austin. How are you, my dear friend?
Okay. Yeah, probably one of the only quotes by Roosevelt that I really appreciate or admire from Eleanor Roosevelt. Being a content creator and a producer, Judge, I struggle with the fact that the masses, the great masses, and if you want popularity, they want you to talk about people and gossip and all of that. And,
Right.
people like yourself and myself, we love talking about ideas. It's quite a struggle, just as an aside, Judge, isn't it, to try and, have that popularity, but also talk about what we want to talk about, which is dusty old books, isn't it?
Sometimes mentally I make a note at dinner table conversations, either with friends or with family on a holiday, how much time is spent gossiping and talking about people versus how much time is spent discussing ideas. And it's embarrassing, even with a rough estimate. But this is why Wednesday mornings are my favorite time of the week, because you and I get to discuss ideas in the presence of people who want to actually hear what we have to say.
Certainly, our audience is smarter than the average bear, Judge, and I'll be looking forward to looking forward to having a discussion with you in just a few minutes about Catholic just war theory and doctrine and applying it into the modern era. But before we do, let's discuss people. Joe Biden, who's gotten himself into a mess. What is this, the sixth time that we've found some treasure trove of classified documents? He's in big trouble. There's a political angle to this. Why is he being thrown under the bus? There's a legal question. Will Merrick Garland prosecute him? You've said on the show before that I think probably not, but how could he not with this mountain of evidence that keeps piling up, Judge?
Well, we don't exactly know what was found in Biden's home or former office or garage. That is, what level of classification it had. So there's confidential, there's secret, there's top secret. And then among top secret, there are 4 other categories. In Trump's case, we know what was found because of his dumb application for a special master, because the special master, a federal judge, discussed openly in a public courtroom with his lawyers and with prosecutors what was found. In Trump's case, 360 documents. Now, some documents are many pages because there was about 20,000 pages of documents, 60 of them in this category of NDI. NDI is National Defense Information, which under federal law, for better or for worse, you and I can talk about whether the government should have any secrets from us. I don't think they should, but they do. NDI is always and everywhere criminal for everyone to possess, including the president, outside of a secure federal facility. Mar-a-Lago is not in that category. Were the documents found in Joe Biden's home or garage and office, or Mike Pence's home, in the NDI category? We don't know. So we won't know how serious the feds will view this until we determine what they are. The lowest level of classification is marked confidential. Confidential can mean, I don't want the public to see this. I don't really want to have to answer this. Austin, you sent me this email. I'm the Attorney General of the United States, and you're the right side of my brain. And you sent me an email questioning the constitutionality of a statute that we're using to prosecute someone in New York. Okay. I don't want the public to see your concerns about the constitutionality of the statute. So I put a stamp on it, confidential. That's classified. That makes it criminal for someone to whom you have given the document to file to share it. That's absurd, but that's the law. That's the bottom level. The upper level, top secret, the preparer of the document and the recipient of the document must agree that it is top secret. You got to go through that process. So what did Pence have? What did Biden have? We don't know. The FBI hasn't leaked like they did in Trump's case, and there isn't a special master to reveal in a public courtroom what they had like in Trump's case.
So what do we expect are going to be the next steps here, Judge? I mean, who has to take action here? Merrick Garland?
Yes, Merrick Garland will probably appoint a special counsel for Mike Pence. Now, that special counsel could be a sitting federal prosecutor in the area, the geographic area of Indiana where Pence's home is located. In Biden's case, the sitting or the special counsel is a very serious, straight down the middle, lifelong prosecutor named Robert Hur. He will make a recommendation to the attorney general. What Joe had was just confidential nonsense. What Joe had was NDI, and his next door neighbors were regularly reading it because they went in the garage at night. I'm giving you hypotheticals, of course. And he will decide what to do. Will they prosecute a sitting president? No, they won't. The Justice Department has taken the position since the Nixon years that a sitting president can't be prosecuted. Could he be prosecuted after he leaves office? Yes. If he runs for re-election and is reelected and serves his full term, he can't be prosecuted when he leaves office because the statute of limitations, which is only 5 years, will have run.
So
in the Pence case, some prosecutor is going to recommend to Garland what to do.
Is the only way then that someone could take some kind of a legal action then would be, in the form of impeachment through Congress?
Well, yes and no. I mean, the House Republicans hate Biden and they would impeach him because of the color of his hair. But under the Constitution, it has to be treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, an amorphous phrase, but meaning something in the category of treason or bribery. I don't think that the wrongful possession or removal of classified documents fits in that category, but Jim Jordan and the House Republicans might disagree.
How about Mike Pence?
Well, Pence does not have any protection, and nor does Donald Trump as former office holders. So again, it would depend upon what he had. That is it NDI or is it confidential or something in between, and how it got there. Was it a simple mistake that he handed it to an assistant to put into a federal secured area, and the assistant inadvertently put it in a box that made it into his home in Indiana? Well, there's a statute that prohibits the negligent treatment of state secrets. It's the rare federal statute that allows you to prosecute, allows the feds to prosecute without proving intent. They only have to prove negligence. That's what Jim Comey threatened to charge Mrs. Clinton with, and then they decided not to charge her with anything in that famous July 3rd or July 5th press conference.
Judge, one of our our friends over in the live stream this morning has a question for you. His name's Jack Bond. He says, "How is the president accountable for respecting classifications? Doesn't classification authority itself exist at the will of the president?"
Yes, it does. However, there are things that are unlawful to possess outside of a federal facility, whether classified or not, and that's NDI, National Defense Information. So National Defense Information would be an assessment of the strength of the Israeli nuclear weapons, the penetration of Iran spies in Israel, something of that nature, which would include sources, double agents working for the CIA and working for Iran, working for Mossad and working for us. Whether it's classified or not, that is unlawful to possess outside of a secure federal facility. Here's a fun fact. George W. Bush, either because he didn't want to be involved with this or he didn't understand it, gave classification and declassification authority to the Vice President of the United States. He didn't name him. It's Dick Cheney. That authority still exists. That authority passed to Joe Biden and to Mike Pence. The public probably doesn't know this, that Joe Biden as vice president could declassify and Mike Pence as vice president could declassify.
That's interesting.
Again, we don't know what happened. It was all so damn secretive.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, I'm speaking to Judge Knapp. He is the host of the Judging Freedom podcast, which you can download on any of your mobile devices and read his weekly column at judgeknapp.com. Now, Judge, I've got about 15 minutes until I have another guest who will come in and talk to me about the sexualization of M&M's candies. So before we get into that deep,
I don't know
dark
anything about that, Austin. Please don't ask me about it.
You don't have to worry about it, Judge. Before we get into that, though, I'd like to pick your brain about something that I've struggled with for years. And that is the question of what is allowable, legal, moral, questionable, right, when it comes to war. And you are someone who has been a proponent of a Catholic doctrine, which has been called the just war theory, which I've studied at least marginally, of course, not to the extent, of course, that you have. But if you wouldn't mind, Judge, before you and I have a discussion about things like collateral damage and the laws of war, would you mind just explaining to our listeners briefly what is the just war theory?
Well, it is a doctrine of the Catholic Church originally propounded by St. Thomas Aquinas, since adopted in a number of treaties, uh, two of which the United States entered into, and none of which is regularly complied with. And it calls for either defensive wars only or first strike when you know that the offense is just about to come your way. It requires that wars be proportional and that the military hardware be aimed at the government's soldiers and agents, not at civilians. It's hard to think of a war, with the exception of the secession of the 13 colonies from Great Britain, that complied with that doctrine. But the doctrine, believe it or not, is woven into the UN Charter, largely written by the US and obviously ratified by the Senate, signed by President Truman. The
In this,
greatest violator of the doctrine in the history of the world, Harry Truman, when he dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and when he authorized the firebombing of German cities and Japanese cities after he became president.
We're going to get to that, Judge, and I'm going to play devil's advocate on that one. But before we get to the nuclear bomb, I'd like to work my way up there because I've had many conversations with people like Jacob Hornberger and others about this question of collateral damage. And, the first one must establish itself whether or not it is a just war, right? So in considering this, I wanted you to establish, what really is a just war. Of course, in the time of St. Thomas Aquinas, they didn't have machine guns. They didn't have bombs. They didn't have nuclear weapons. And so now we live in a world where collateral damage in a war, whether it's a just war or an unjust war, is almost entirely unavoidable. So
Well,
in having this conversation with Hornberger, he has accepted that collateral damage is something that will occur. And if it's in a defensive war that is a just war, it is something that has to be accepted. It's because it's unavoidable. But he disagrees with the decision of Harry Truman to drop the bomb because it is some unimaginable special evil. And my question is what is really so different or really so, unique of an evil of a nuclear weapon as opposed to a firebombing or any other form of weapon? I mean, quite frankly, I'd rather be, nuked than, have napalm poured all over my body and die in that manner. So I guess my question for you there, Judge, is if it's a just defensive war, one, is collateral damage acceptable and understanding that? And two, what is so special or unique about a nuclear weapon versus others?
well, let me start by saying that I fully agree with our friend Jake Hornberger, who runs the Future of Freedom Foundation in Arlington, Virginia, and who writes about these materials regularly. By the way, he's one of the country's experts on the assassination of JFK. You can ask him anything you want about that. Now, as for this, it doesn't matter if it's a nuclear bomb or if it's carpet bombing. If the target is civilians, it is per se unjust because you are targeting civilians, which is outside the confines of a just war. Just war, you can only target armaments or the people who operate the armaments. When Harry Truman dropped an atomic bomb on a Roman Catholic cathedral in Nagasaki, that, of course, was a war crime. It wouldn't have mattered if it was an atomic bomb or if it was carpet bombing, as he and FDR authorized in Germany and Japan, because they are targeting places and people outside the confines of war, homes, churches, civilian places where civilians are more likely than not to be held or housed. It is unjust. What is not unjust is the accidental harm, the unavoidable harm caused to civilians who are not intentionally targeted. There's absolutely no way to avoid that. On the other hand, if the war is unjust, if it's an offensive war because of a hatred of the ethnicity of the country that you're battling, then all harm is unjust, even the harm visited upon the military of that country. So you're quite right. We have to start with the base question. Is the use of military force, of government force in this conflagration itself just? If the answer is no, then it doesn't matter how careful they are. If the answer is yes, then they have to stay within the confines of war.
So it seems to me as if the question then relies on, if collateral damage is allowable, is if they were not targeted. Now, I would imagine that the victims of it wouldn't care about the intentions of the people who are trying to target them. They don't care if you meant to target them or if you didn't mean to target them. They're going to die either way. But the question is, if it is a just war, if it is a defensive war, if the people who are belligerents say that they're terrorists who are hiding amongst civilian populations for the express purpose of using them as human shields, right? In that underneath that scenario, and that strict limited scenario that I've placed, this hypothetical, is it justifiable for me to use any type of force or means necessary to defend my life, even if that means that some civilians on that side may be harmed, up to and including nuclear weapons, Judge?
It is never justifiable, and under the just war theory, to use weapons of mass destruction. And if the bad guys are living amongst the good, you got to go in there and get them out. You can never just randomly target the bad guys knowing that there are human shields there. That's doing evil that good might come of it, which is
So in that case,
condemned under
but in
just
that
war
case,
theory.
Judge, then, and sorry, I want to get through this because we've only got a few minutes, but it's such an important topic. It's something that I've really wrestled with. Under that case, then bombs, any bomb, should be, outlawed in the use of war because of the potential for collateral damage.
Well, a bomb on a building that contains civilians and military would be unjust. A bomb on a building that contains military, but some civilians across the street accidentally got harmed, would not be unjust. You can't target non-belligerents, no matter what the goal is, under just war theory.
Well, under just war theory, perhaps, but Judge, again, knowing that Aquinas didn't have bombs or machine guns or grenades or anything like that, it's unfortunate, however, if our enemies have these weapons and would use them against us, and if in an existential conflict, in some sense, it appears to be, at least from a Sun Tzu, from a not a just war theory, but from a the rules of war according to Sun Tzu, it would appear as if that kind of a strategy would lead one to a form of suicide, essentially, that you would allow your opponents to be able to use the types of weapons against you that would kill you and the civilians in your population, while denying yourself the ability to defend yourself appropriately from such, for the chance that you might hit a civilian in their territory. I mean, it just seems to me, Judge, as if it might be good morality, but it's terrible military defensive strategy.
Well, I'm coming to you as a theoretician on the philosophy side of this, not as a military person. But the military answer to that is to destroy the enemy's weaponry, but not to destroy the enemy's civilian population.
Yes, and I agree with you, Judge. And in this concept that we've concocted, right, which is and war is never, very rarely a battle of good and evil, even in World War II, right? And like you said,
Correct.
perhaps the American Revolutionary War might be the only example of a just war that conforms to that Catholic doctrine, as you stated. But I have such a difficulty with balancing a proper defensive strategy Whereas, when we as libertarians look at applying our philosophy to politics writ large, we apply only philosophical theory, but we very rarely apply military doctrine to our views and our principles. And I wonder if sometimes the reason why our philosophical principles have not been able to get across the finish line is because we don't apply the principles of Sun Tzu, and because we're not skilled tacticians in the applied doctrine or philosophy. Because war isn't always a war fought by bombs and guns and machine guns. Wars are fought in the mind. Wars are fought
Correct.
Wars are
Well, I
also
agree
fought
with-
as propaganda wars.
Yes, I agree with the last part of that wars are also fought in the mind, but history is also written by the victors. I mean, Harry Truman should have been tried and executed, if you believe in the death penalty, which I don't, for war crimes because of the innocents that he slaughtered. But because the United States won the war, the other side got tried. So our principles don't always gain currency because we don't always follow through on them. Who's going to try Harry Truman for killing civilians when he's the popular and eventually elected on his own president of the United States, claiming credit for winning World War II, a war that would have been won anyway without the carpet bombing and without the slaughtering of innocents and without the dropping of the bomb, just to show Joe Stalin that it can be done.
See, I would contend that one of the chief concerns of the American people in acting on libertarian beliefs, or the widespread of adoption of libertarian beliefs, lies in the fearfulness of the American people for no good reason, one, but for a good reason, two, in that libertarians do not provide a sufficient tactical worldview in defending the lives, in terms of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, the lives of the American people from a military perspective. And I guess probably the future, if the liberty movement is to survive, Judge, is to come up with a form of philosophy, not a militant libertarian philosophy, but a more defensive military strategy that can actually defend itself from things like war communism. How does pacifistic libertarianism defend itself against the aggressive, violent actions of Antifa anarchists? How does pacifistic libertarian voluntarism defend itself against Pol Pot or Che Guevara? Right? At
Well,
some time,
that's
but at some
easy.
point, it's one. I'm almost finished, Judge. At some point, we have to ask ourselves, if H.L. Mencken isn't right, that every decent man, who is ashamed of the government that he lives under, must sometimes raise the black flag and begin slitting throats. When is it that time?
When an unjust aggressor comes after you, whether it's a thief in the night or an army in the field, you use whatever force you can to resist it. Under our beliefs, anything the government owns, I know you're going to love this. I remember you arguing with Gary Schreier, who was our boss in those days at Fox, over this. Anything the government owns, you can own. You can own a tank. You can own the same military equipment that the government owns to defend your life, the lives of your family, and your property. Again, whether it's a thief in the night or whether it's Pol Pot coming up the road.
Well, Judge, I think, I will maintain my nuclear weapons and my grenades and my machine guns and bombs. But if you want a flintlock musket and you'd like to use that, you can have it. Judge Andrew Napolitano, the host of the Judging Freedom podcast. We're so grateful for you. Thanks for talking about these big ideas, Judge. It's like a cold drink of water in a hot desert. Thank you.
The best conversation I have all week. All the best to you, Austin.
Thank you very much, Judge. We'll talk again next week at judgenap.com. Make sure to watch his show, Judging Freedom. He has great guests on there every single day. Judge Andrew Napolitano, what do you think? All right, so now it's time to talk about M&Ms and the About Face with my friend Adam Raziri. He's going to be joining us here in just a minute. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1. You can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself. Oh, me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great. Number 2. Most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3. You're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell! This commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. It's nice to see such a big audience over there today. Yeah. I love watching the Wake Up America show grow, and it's because I've been following best practices. Not only am I putting out great content for you, which is number 1, but I'm actually doing a lot of research into best practices for marketing. marketing, it's kind of like the boring part of everything that I do. Schedule the social media post, create a new logo for this brand, right? But sometimes marketing can actually be a little bit sexy. Like when they wade into the battle, when Mars Candy decides to wade into the battle of genders with sexy M&Ms. Oh yeah, all female M&Ms? Well, no, they're gone. Well, what happened? Well, they say it's the conservative backlash to it. Conservatives pounced. Let's talk to a marketing professional and a conservative himself. His name is Adam Raziri, and he's joining us right now on the line for his first time on the program. Adam, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Austin, great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, honestly, I was kind of excited about the all-female M&Ms. I was sad that they took it away. What was your take, brother?
Yeah, I was pretty upset by it too, and frankly, it's not just because it's January and it's all about New Year's resolutions and trying to eat healthy anyway. So in my life, I mean, M&Ms have already sort of been taken away right now. My wife has me on a very strict, no fun diet, But I got to be honest, this whole M&Ms without the lashes, without the heels thing, it is upsetting. It's frankly kind of ridiculous. And I was just kind of wondering when we were going to see the George Floyd M&M come out, or when's the Sam Brinton M&M going to come out with a bearded, lipsticked, high-heeled M&M, something very confusing. Where is that? Just because I feel like we're losing a little bit of inclusion here, right? So when I see brands do things like this, the first thing that comes to mind is two words: virtue signaling, right? And here we are, it's 2023, and I thought 2022 was over. But just things keep on happening now. You see now Mars moving towards getting rid of these spoke candies that historically have done very well for the brand. But there is truth to go woke, go broke. They've moved over to Maya Rudolph, a pretty famous comedian, Democrat activist, raised millions of dollars for Kamala Harris. I mean, that sounds like it's a move away from being divisive, right? I mean, it's kind of a funny move, really. And when you think about the business implications from it, right? Well, they're moving away from, I guess, these high heel-less, lashless M&Ms towards the flat shoed M&Ms, towards the Maya Rudolph choice, but they're really trying to. It seems like they're really diminishing their brand. I think this move towards Maya Rudolph is actually a move in reaction to their profits shrinking. But I think the reality is Maya Rudolph probably is going to do the same, right? We're sitting here now, the market itself, we're not in a period of growth. And oftentimes when companies are doing really, really well, there's a lot of waste there. You see a lot of waste via the diversity and equity and inclusion programming, trying to invite employees to drag queen bingo for happy hours. I've heard of that happening at enterprises in America. And now that the market's a little bit more restricting, I think companies are having to make choices about where they spend their money, and they're not able to be quite so wasteful as they have been over the past few years, which frankly is a good thing, right? You're hearing about all this stuff taking place, and in the mixture of things, right? Layoffs, a lot of layoffs taking place. When are they going to start laying off the marketing teams and the highly paid CEOs who are making these terrible decisions, because they're making decisions that are really not in the best interest of their shareholders? And last time I checked, public companies, they have a fiduciary obligation to make decisions that are in their shareholders' best interest, but we're just not seeing that.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson, and I'm joined right now on camera by Adam Raziri. He's the Chief Marketing Officer at Agency Partner Interactive, and we're talking to him about M&M's recent marketing campaign. One of the big questions, when it comes to marketing and, going woke and going broke, Adam, is this environmental, social, and governance protocols that many corporations have been implementing. But we've seen some of these companies actually back off of that because the type of environmental standards that are demanded in order by the the World Economic Forum, which is largely putting these together, is just unsustainable for a lot of these companies. When we're going into a recession right now and people can barely afford the price of eggs, who really has the time or energy or money to try and meet the demands of a 16-year-old autistic Swedish child?
Right. I mean, ESG puts a totally unfair burden on small businesses in America, right? I think ESG assumes that you've got money to spend. And the reality is small businesses are strapped right now, right? How dare you? We are in an environment that is extremely hostile. And when you think about ESG and you think about the financial institutions that offer capital to businesses, if they're lending based on ESG scores, I mean, the small businesses are going to get screwed every time. And also too, when you think about the companies that are subscribing to ESG itself, well, think about the companies that buy cobalt, right? Companies that sell technology, Apple. I mean, 70% of the world's cobalt comes from child slave labor in Congo, right? And so these companies that are subscribing to ESG scores, well, if you look at their supply chain, they're buying cobalt that comes from child slave labor. Like that's just the fact, right? So oftentimes these enterprises are pretty easy to point at and call out for being extremely hypocritical. From the NBA, operating in China, and Nike, using actual slave labor to manufacture their products, but then you look at the NBA, like they have Black Lives Matter on the basketball court. Nike, they have Colin Kaepernick as their poster child. So, these enterprises are pretty easy to poke at and say, hey guys, what do you actually care about? And, when in a recession, what do they care about? They care about money, right? Because I mean, revenue is oxygen to a business. Money is what keeps the wheels turning. So a lot of these companies have really been kind of enjoying, I think, the economic growth that President Trump gave us, and then using it to kind of shoot themselves in the foot, right? We are where we are today because of their decision making. So yeah, ESG scores, I think that at the end of the day, they really do sort of suffocate small businesses in strong ways. And I think it's something that we have to push back against and support the local governors and the lawmakers who are taking actions to actually get rid of ESG, like in Florida and hopefully in Texas as well.
We've been seeing a lot of great comments from our friends over in the live stream, of which there are many people over there today. Nice big audience. Glad to have you here. Let's give yourselves a little pat on the back. A round of applause. For all the people who are watching here today and just tuning in, if this is your first time here, make sure that you click the like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification icon so you know whenever we go live, which is, of course, every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. I think my next guest, Adam Raziri, who is a marketing professional himself, would appreciate my little marketing ploy right there. From our live stream. Yeah, from our live stream chat, Adam, our listeners are sending in really great comments. Buddy Mansour says maybe next should be George Floyd M&Ms. I doubt it, buddy. Not a good idea. Jacob Champion actually has a really good question here. He says, is the mascot changes for M&Ms just a way to drown out news about them being sued for the cadmium and lead that got in the chocolates? Yeah, Mars has had a lot of legal problems lately. I guess Dove bars had lead in them or cadmium or some stuff. Like some of this might be smoke and mirrors for some of the legal problems that corporations like this are facing.
Oh, certainly. I don't think lead is great for the New Year's resolutions, right? So obviously their sales are going to plummet a little bit when you hear there's lead in your chocolate. So yeah, I mean, there's, it can be smoke and mirrors, of course, but there's a positive way to do things and there's a negative way to do things. And, if the Mars brand was serious about trying to be a future focused brand, they would play on the whole, like, travel to Mars thing, right? With companies like SpaceX and with NASA, and try to align their brand with things that are a little bit more future focused instead of looking back, and trying to rewrite history and looking back on things that frankly were terrible for our society. The diversity, equity, and inclusion chaos that has kind of been waged across our country has been really detrimental. And if you look really kind of at the root of it, it's all a tool to try and spread, frankly, socialism on our great society. So, we have to push back on brands like Mars and realize that as the consumer, we have a wallet. We can choose where we spend our money.
Adam, I guess my next question for you would just be that, is the answer to, going woke, going broke, to go con? I mean, like, is there some, I mean, in terms of marketing, right? What works, right? Whichever market we're trying to capture, right? We want to sell to. I mean, is it really, it's a great marketing slogan saying go woke, go broke, and it's good for politicians. And it might even be good for a few companies like, Black Rifle Company or anything like that. But
Sure.
I mean, do liberals really not buy products? Well, of course they do. So, I mean, how would you market to them, if you were in this kind of environment? Maya Rudolph seems to be a good idea, but of course you want to capture the broadest audience you can. Is it better to just completely stay out of politics? Because honestly, I don't know how in the hell I would operate because I'm a micro influencer, right? I have, I
Yeah.
don't have the hugest following in the world, but I got a good sized following, and I stay in my lane and I market my niche and I sell, gold and silver to people who, want to hedge it against inflation and things like that. So, I mean,
Right.
what
Right.
is a good marketing strategy?
Man, it's really simple, right? It's kind of sticking to the basics, especially in this kind of economy. If a company focuses on offering excellent customer service and consistent quality of products or services that they offer the market. I mean, really focusing on being great, focusing on excellence, focusing on serving the actual needs of your customer instead of getting involved in the culture wars. I mean, people know, like, what does Delta know about election integrity? What does Disney really know about public education in Florida schools, right? Companies don't have any place, in these kind of culture wars, because the bottom line is if they're spending financial resources to pursue things that, some Democrat activist organization wants them to pursue, then they're irresponsibly using, frankly, money that should go back to the shareholders, right? It basically indicates waste, right? So just as a company, as a marketing team, focus on what your focus is, right? Just be excellent and don't get involved in the mud, man. I mean, leave that for us.
For sure. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson, and you are watching Adam Riziri. He is the Chief Marketing Officer at Agency Partner Interactive. We're talking about going woke and going broke, specifically the story of M&M's candies, which were rolled out as all-female candies for a little while, but now they've decided to pivot and move over to hiring Maya Rudolph. Out of the frying pan into the fire, I guess we'll say on that one. So I guess, what are the lessons to be learned from this, would you say, Adam?
The lessons to be learned from this are, there is such a thing as keeping it real, right? And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The M&Ms that were around for decades, there was nothing wrong with them. That worked really well for the brand, that made them a lot of money. Bring them back, right? I think there's really something to be said for staying in your lane in some ways and taking, I think, calculated risks. But, when you have an enterprise that frankly claims to speak for its thousands of employees or millions of customers, when you pick a side in the culture wars, you're going to inevitably alienate probably a huge part of your employee base or your customer base. And that's a big problem for a corporate CEO. So keep it real. Pursue excellence, offer consistency and quality in your product or service. And that's really the bottom line, right? Try to, especially today, in today's market, really also, brands that can keep things positive are the brands that I think are going to look the best. You think about the old Coca-Cola campaigns with the polar bears, around Christmas time. Those were great. They were heartwarming. And now, Coke went woke, right? Trying to demonize the entire Caucasian race and HR programming. That's a really terrible thing. As somebody who grew up drinking Coke, right? Like, I guess now I'm going to stick to water.
That's a really good point there. Adam, is there anything else that you'd like to let our listeners know before we let you go, sir?
Just keep it real, guys, right? I mean, you do have a real say over what these companies do. You do have a decision as to where you spend your money. I'd love to continue the conversation with you guys. Check me out at agencypartner.com or at the Adam Riz on Twitter.
We will do that. Adam Riziri, he is a great marketing agent, and we're glad to have him on the program today. Thanks for your expertise, Adam. We'll definitely want to have you back on the show again soon. Keep in touch.
Thanks, Austin.
Thank you very much. All right. So in the spirit of marketing, I'm going to try and sell you some gold right now. How about that? Let's go over to our gold scene and play our little song. Oh, wrong song. Not that song. How about this song? Thanks so much for tuning in today. This show is brought to you in part by Lear Capital. The rest of the part is brought to you by, me and my wife, Stephanie, who spends long hours working at the AP for Liberty job, and people like you. But Lear Capital has stepped in a big way to help support the Wake Up America show. You can help support the Wake Up America show too, and find out more about a great way to secure your financial future by investing in gold and silver. Yeah, the economy, like he said, not looking so hot. All of the layoffs that have been occurring, now's a good time to consider making at least a part of your portfolio precious metals. And if it's not yet, what are you doing? Right? Every good Liberty lover has got to have a little bit of gold, right? At the end of the rainbow. We've all got a little leprechaun in us, don't we? If you don't, at least find out more information, right? Ask yourself this: how much do you know about investing in gold and silver? Maybe you don't invest at all. And honestly, if you're going to do any investing at all, and the first thing that you do is buy some gold and silver, that's actually pretty smart. Very smart. Maybe you've got a 401k, Roth IRA, and you'd like to say, oh, well, I've got a lot of paper stocks here. Maybe I'd like to take it and say, I'd like to put a portion of that in gold and silver, but you don't know anything about it. Well, there's no obligation to buy. Just visit learaustin.com and get yourself a free gold packet. If you go to learaustin.com, you just put in your information and they'll say, here we go. We'll give you this gold packet. and tell you more information about how you can invest in gold and silver. It's easy, it's free, and all you have to do is go to learaustin.com or call that number at the top of your screen, 1-800-885-2175. That's 1-800-885-2175. And when we get back, we're going to talk about things that boomers do, 10 habits that boomers do that irritate millennials. When we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. We appreciate you very much. Glad to have you here today. Today was a good show, it feels like, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, thanks so much. I'm glad you agree with me. If you like this show today and you like that kind of content, just remember, it's very expensive to produce a show like this. Would you mind just sending a super chat over on YouTube at youtube.com/AP for Liberty, $1.99, $2.99, $5.99. See, one of the rules of marketing is, and one of the rules of the public policy process, if you were listening earlier, the laws of the public policy process, is that you don't get what you don't ask for. And I'd like to ask my beautiful wife, smoking hot, redheaded libertarian wife, Stephanie, who's watching over there right now. Stephanie, would you do me a favor? And would you grab the PDF document? There's a link at the Leadership Institute website to the laws of the public policy process and drop it in the chat for all of our friends over there. I would be super grateful if you would, honey, because one of the rules, the laws of the public policy process, is you don't get what you don't ask for. I'd love it if I could just get one super chat before the end of the show today to help the show grow, because guess what? We've got our first employee. Yeah! And I'm being very careful, right? Starting them out slow, starting them out part-time. The hope is that the show continues to grow, that we get more sponsors like Lear Capital and others, so that this summer we can even put them up for full-time. Wouldn't that be awesome? Oh, hell yeah, baby. We'd be rocking and rolling and Rick rolling, baby. It'd be great. That'd be great. Wouldn't you love to see a full-time employee working here on the show, not only helping us with the AP for Liberty shop, but also to helping create more content, right? Get all those podcasts uploaded and do all that stuff so we can focus on getting you more content, better guests, bookings, all that stuff. I think that we could do it. I think we can build a libertarian Daily Wire, and then we won't have the drama like they had with the people between Jeremy Boring and Steven Crowder. No, that's just how it is. You know, once you get that big, there's just going to be those kinds of problems with talent and gossip and he said, she said. That's just how it is. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that very much. Andy Opperman, big time applause. Thank you. We did it. See, now here's the thing. Now we learned something about marketing today. And that's one thing, because I know a lot of you, maybe you're in a business or you own a small business and stuff, and you're having a challenge with marketing. I've been talking about this a lot lately and learning a lot more about marketing. And the thing is it really is true. You don't get what you don't ask for, right? Look at that. And Robbie even got, look at this, Robbie Thurman. Check that out. He gets the little super chat. We call it, that's my little stream elements right there. So you see, every time you make a little super chat right there, you get a little reward, I guess, there we go, visual reward right there that pops up over my right shoulder there. So when you do that, you get to see your name up on the screen and you get a little reward for doing that. So thank you very much. But there's a perfect example. Don't get what you don't ask for. And so I ask you for a super chat, and look, we got Andy and Robbie. That's $7 right there that I didn't have a few minutes ago. I can use that to pay about half of an hour's wage for 1 hour of my employee. So I'm excited though. I can't wait to introduce you to him at some point. Of course, I'm sure he'll want to like just make a little appearance on the show so you can say hi to him and meet him. And he'll also be able to help while we maintain operations while Stephanie and I are in Japan, which of course is coming up soon at the end of March. Stephanie and I are going to be in Japan. I know. But we will be producing some content while we're over there. I'm going to be visiting the Yasukuni Shrine, which is their war shrine. So I'll produce some content there for you and share that with you while we're over in Japan. But I'm also going to try not to think about work a whole lot. But I'll have somebody here pulling the levers and making the magic for the Wizard of Oz work so that you guys can still get some proper content while I'm gone. But every once in a while I get to take a vacation here, even though I work for myself. But basically I work for you and for Robbie Thurman and Andy Opperman. That's who I work for. Yes. Cool kids, watch AP. Leave the marketing to us. Yes, Adam. Glad to have you here. I love it. Before I go, because I see we've got 40 people, if we could have just one more super chat before we go. Can we do it? Can we do it? Can we make it pop one more time? Maybe we can get, I'd love it if we could get enough for a 1 hour of my employee, right? So we give it for his hourly wage, if we could make enough for 1 hour. So if we can do that, then I would be super excited and glad to have it. All right. But while I do it, I'll have to earn my keep and not just talk about myself in the show and all that and talk about the news. I saw this story yesterday, made me laugh. 10 habits that irritate millennials. And me being a geriatric millennial, I was like, well, this is perfect. So let's talk about it. The number one thing that annoys millennials about boomers is randomly popping in for a visit. Well, I wish my dad would pop in for a visit more, but he can't because he lives 2.5 hours away. So I don't have to worry about that. But is that something that bothers you as a millennial? Why do people hate their families so much? I don't get it. This is how I feel. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe if they live next door or something, that would be annoying. Oh, Tolly Owens is in for $4.99. Yes. We've almost got enough for 1 hour of our employee. Thank you very much, Tolly. We appreciate you. Another round of applause. Let's do our little happy dance. Appreciate you. Robbie, look at you. We did it, Robbie. Huge applause. Awesome. We hit our goal. And the Sheep Mage. Wow, you rock, dude. He says, absolutely love your message, and I've been following you for years. Please keep going. Liberty is so important, and you have a great ability to share that message. Hell yes. The Sheep Mage. We killed it. That's 2 hours of employee time that we're going to be able to pay for. And, soon if somebody else donates, we'll be able to pay the taxes on that. Isn't that awesome? Well, Sheep Mage, we're glad to have you here this morning. Super excited. Robbie Thurman really stepped up. Tolly Owens and Andy Opperman, you guys are awesome. Thanks so much for the super chats. Now, see, marketing, if I hadn't asked. Number two thing about millennials that annoys them about boomers, boomers annoy them with, is talking about how you should buy a house, right? Back in the day, buying a house was a thing to do, right? That was, there was a checklist: get married, get an education, buy a house, have a family, retire. But it was a lot easier to purchase a house back in the 1950s, right? Now our houses are full of all this important technology that makes them much nicer, but also much more expensive. And boomers are like, just buy a house, buy a house. It's not that easy to buy a house. Yeah. Printing emails. Can you print this email out for me? Print this website content out for me. Emails are meant to be read, digitally, deleted, or left to reside forever in your inbox. Baby boomers need to print off all their emails and every page they have visited. It's though they're trying to archive some secret legacy that they want to leave behind. That's very funny. Yeah. I wish, honestly, that I had a printer here and I could print out all my news stories and I could have them here on my big desk with my, Alex Jones style cameras and everywhere, but I can't do that. So maybe I'm just jealous. Yeah, printing emails and website ideas. Also, the idea that your job is your life. Yeah, that's one the millennials feel, right? The boomers love to recount their careers and how thankful they were that they had a job, right? Back as if they lived to work, and they expect you to give a commitment to the bosses. Libertarian Daily Wire is worth all the investment, says Jack Bond. Yes! Oh my God. The metrics for this show today are going to be awesome. I get this email that sends out to the show. It says, this is how many people watched, and this says how many people donated. And we had a lot of people watching today. And because of you guys, we raised a lot of money. That is so exciting. I'm just thrilled. My job is my life, though. So for sure. Another thing. Oh, this is so stupid. Not recycling. Yeah, millennials are annoyed at boomers for not recycling. That's because a lot of millennials are stupid.
How dare you?
They are. And I just got one question for the millennials who still think recycling is a good idea.
Why are you gay?
Yeah, recycling is actually more harmful to the environment in lots of ways, and you know it. Society changes. Look at this. It's 9 a.m. Darn it. I gots to go. You guys, you really made my day. I hope I made yours. I think I must have, because look at all those awesome donations. Thank you. We put those to a good use. I'm going to be buying a new lens for my camera very soon. Very expensive. And my new employee starts on Monday. I'm nervous about that. Because it's like, then you have that responsibility to that person. And it's just like, it's scary. Sometimes it's just like, work for yourself. Just be a solopreneur and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, we can't grow if we don't get a little help around here. We need more presidential Buddhas. Right? We need more awesome sweaters. We need more merchandise at the shop. We need more of that. We need to be growing. We need to have more marketing. Now, he's a digital marketing major over at Lynn Tech, and now he's going to work for us. Appreciate you very much. Elizabeth Press, the only show she listens to. Grant, appreciate you very much. Jack Bond, you're the man. The Sheep Mage, Robbie Thurman, Tolly Owens, and Andy Opperman. You guys made some big donations today, and I am grateful for it. Hey, everybody, say thank you to them. Give them applause. They're the ones who help make the show happen. If you want a free way to help the show, you can visit learaustin.com as well. Get a free gold packet. Find out more about investing. Or you can also visit the AP for Liberty shop. I wish I didn't have to go. Don't you kind of wish that I had to, that we could stay? I know. I wish I could stay. But, if I stick around for too long, then I won't be able to produce my next Guns of the Presidents video, which nobody guessed. Yes, I know, which means nobody gets the $5 gift certificate.
Emotional damage.
Too bad. Deal with your emotional damage somewhere else. Stop posting it on the internet. And we'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Petersen stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.